So it's the next morning and we get up. And so we had arrived on a Saturday and Sunday was the next morning. And I was asked, will you go to church? And I'm like, sure, I'll go to church. We're out here, we're in the middle of nowhere. Church is only 2 minutes. And it ended up that church was 50 feet away in the next building. Okay? So I decide to wear traditional clothing. And I put on my traditional dress and head wrap. And I'm all excited. And Josiah comes out and she's dressed in this beautiful yellow dress, traditional. And I noticed that even though she's part blind and I saw her smile when she hugged Job, she doesn't smile. And she was standing in front of the house. Roasted corn was coming out for our breakfast. And I go and I hug her. And I put my arm around her. And I give her a hug. And then I stand next to her arm in arm. And she's rubbing her back. And I go, is she okay? And Job says, no, her back's been really, really sore. So I put my hand on her back. And I start running energy through her back, quietly, just rubbing her back. And she looks at me. And I don't say anything, I just hold her back. And then she goes to Job, it feels better. And I go, that's what I'm hoping. I said, would you like me to work on it later? She says, yes, I would. I said, well, what about after church? She says, okay. And then she goes and she sits down, and I didn't think anything of it. She didn't express anything to me. So we were okay with this. So we all go to church. And the church is just this another little house. And this time they had multiple logs there where you could sit in it. And there was what you would call a stage. And that's where the pastor and his deacons, that we would call deacons, but the men folks sit in the front. Except for the part, the audience would be all of the people who were gathered, the women folk, the younger men. But it was the men who sat in the front. And then 3 chairs on the side for the guests, myself, Job, and Xenia. Manuel decided he was going to stay and take a nap. He wasn't feeling that good. So these young girls, 14 years old, 15 years old, maybe 16 oldest, outside of the grown women, are staring at me. And they're looking, and they can't decide. They're just looking. They have no expectations, but they can't decide what to expect. And then I smile at them, and I'm looking them directly in the eye, and then they look behind themselves, and I go, no, you. And I point, and they're shy and giggling. Until I listen to these women sing, and I say, these young women, voices like you would not believe, harmonies like you would not believe, the power and the strength of their voices, the welcoming of their voices. And so we sit there, taking all of this in, and things being said in Mbundu, and me picking up on a pattern of them saying things in Ubuntu and being able to answer some of them back right with them, because I get it, I'm listening. And here we are, the three of us. I speak English, Job speaks English and Portuguese, his sister speaks Portuguese and Ubuntu. So the translation went from Xenia to Job to me to understand what was being said. And if I asked a question, me to Job to Xenia, and then to answer back, Xenia, Job, back to me. And they're translating this service to me. And the pastor is speaking, and he says, there's been this prophecy, a prophecy that was said 40 years ago. It was said 40 years ago that there would be an outsider who would come and visit us, somebody from the Western world. And I want you to know, the prophecy was written right here, and he shows the pages of the prophecy. And I'm like, asking Job, where's he going with this? And Job's like, I don't know. I'm just translating. And we were told that when these outsiders come, they will bring help and learning and teaching to us. And we embrace the prophecy. And I want you to know, on this day today, that prophecy came true. And I want you to meet Enolia, our first outsider, our first Westerner. See, right here, the living. And I'm like, no. And Job's like, yes, that's what he just said.